So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and my super special guest and new friend, David Schreiner. So David is CEO and it's of Katherine Shaw Bethea Hospital. And this is where I'm so freaking excited for him. So we're recording on the day after his book actually launched and got in the hands of people like me. Right? Are you ready? So I'm just, and this is not put on. I'm just so thrilled for you. And I want to follow in your footsteps because I aspire to be an author as well. So I'm going to kick us off with a quote. Welcome, Dave. And the quote that I'm going to do is around the theme that we talked about, and it's from Covey. It's the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but are you ready for this? But to actually schedule your priorities. And it stood out for me because when I think about that, we tend to do the first thing. We're going to look at the freaking laundry list we have. We're going to look at our Outlook calendar. I know I'm guilty of it, okay? And go, what is all the stuff that's on there? What are the things that I have to do? And what we forget about in that case is, let's say you're an organization doing new strategy. Here's all the new stuff that we have to do. We're already doing all these things over here. How do you work that in? How do you make a decision to stop doing the stuff that you no longer should be doing right now to be able to fit in and prioritize the other stuff if you're not scheduling your priorities instead of prioritizing what you've already scheduled? So that's the little snippet that's on my brain about that. Dave, welcome to the conversation again. Congratulations. And what's on your mind?
Well, thank you, Michelle. I so admire your energy. It gets me excited to see the level of interest that you have. Thank you for that. You're so good at what you do. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Thank you. So talk to me about, because we're around priorities and I know that matters to you. And it's so funny, the few times that we talked beforehand, you were like, I'm CEO, but it's a small hospital. It's not a small hospital, Dave. Okay. But talk to people about what prioritizing or priorities mean to you in the world of what you do and what you've been able to do. And oh, by the way, your freaking journey, because you've been in the hospital for how long?
35 years in March.
35 years. So I'm sure you didn't start as CEO.
No, I didn't. I want to go back to something you said in the intro. When you were saying that, Michelle, I was thinking about high school students and how many high school students have told me, I get the best grades when I'm in a sport and I'm in choir and they list like 5 different things. And I think back to your story of going to undergrad and graduate school when you had a job and kids and family. And I have that same experience. Sometimes we do better when we are busier because we do focus on the things that we're very intentional about accomplishing and we let other things go. And most importantly, those things that we let go, we mentally let them go. We don't worry about it. We take care of the thing. We make the main thing the main thing. So I appreciate that very much, Michelle. My story started as an X-ray tech. I majored in fraternity and track and field when I was an undergrad, and I was completely unemployable when I graduated. So I went out to see my mom in Kansas, and I was playing in a pickup basketball game on a weekend on a Saturday. And the director of the program had a student drop out of the X-ray class on Friday, and Monday I started. And Michelle, I loved everything about the healthcare environment from the first hour that I was in a hospital. I loved the people. I loved the facilities where they were, and I couldn't get over the patients. It was a new experience every time I got to meet somebody. And I've never lost that passion over all of the years that I've been involved in healthcare. So I started here at Katherine Shaw Bethea Hospital as the director of medical imaging in 1989. And then over the years, I had progressive opportunities, including chief operating officer and then the president and CEO in 2011.
Thank you for that. And it's interesting when you talk about it, because I'm going to go back to my journey when I've talked to people, right? And until I'm doing what I'm doing now, okay, coaching, leadership development, up to that point, pretty much anything that I had stepped into was really not intentional. I didn't have this plan. But what I did do was when the door opened, I stepped through it. And I think back to high school, and I had to sit here and smile when you said, Friday, I didn't know what I was going to do. Monday I started, because someone dropped out. That was an open door, right? And you could have made the choice to go, yeah, no, I'll pass. I was in high school, okay, and I graduated high school a year early. And frankly, it was because I was bored. And I had no plan. So they had a program that you could work like a college schedule, right? So this is my junior year, and the only class that I had 5 days a week was French 3. So French 3, I'm sitting in class, and it's like the last 4 weeks of class, and there's this flyer for Pac Bell, and this is Pac Bell when they had cordboard. Okay, remember? I don't know if you remember Lily Tomlin plugging in. This is Pac
That's
Bell.
a great visual.
Yes. So, I'm sitting there with this flyer, and Pac Bell is offering to train high school students, no guarantee of a job. You could either be a 411 operator. Remember when we used to dial 411 to get information, or the dial O long distance operator. So I went to the long distance operator path. You had to memorize every area code across the United States. I mean, all this stuff, capital. I mean, it was crazy. No guarantee of a job offer. And when it was done, I got a job offer. And so literally that was my first job. Real job. I worked at J.C. Penney's and retail and all that stuff. McDonald's, when you had to use the pad and actually write everything down. But when I think about that, it was an open door. I could have said, I don't need to go to that. But it's those opportunities, I think, that when the door opens and we step through them to things we've never done before, that it's powerful stuff.
It's very powerful, and I think sometimes we close that door too quickly when we see those opportunities. We think our plate's overloaded. How could I possibly take one more thing on? But that one more thing for me, and I can think of several examples, have been some of the best part of my life. The idea of writing a book or doing an Ironman or finishing marathons or whatever it might be. Those processes and the journeys that get there, it's not the publishing that's fun. It's the writing, and it's the promotion, and it's doing things like meeting people like you and being on some podcasts that are really a blast. And those doors would not have opened if I thought, gosh, how could I possibly do that? I could never fit it in. You find time to do the things that are most important to you.
So I'll ask you a question, and because what came to mind for me when you're talking is, what impact, Dave, has that had to people around you?
What I hope, but what is aspirational for me, is that the principles that are in the book, Michelle, are the ways that I try to act with the people that matter the most to me here at the organization. And one of the things that is so cool about working in a rural hospital is I can have a 9 o'clock meeting with a Harvard trained surgeon and a 9:30 meeting with a member of our housekeeping team. And that person at 9:30 might give me information from someone closest to the work that is transformational for our organization. And I get to do that all week long. And if I can do some of these 15 principles in the book that are led by 3 core engagement pillars, I'm going to interact in a more meaningful way with these people. And that's my goal.
Yeah. It's so funny you're talking, and I'm like, doggone it. I wish this didn't arrive at my door yesterday to have read this. But I will read this. And then, like I talked to you about before when it came on, I thought, God, I wish it was on Audible. It's coming on Audible.
It is coming on Audible.
Right?
Yeah, I don't have a date yet on that. It's on Amazon now for Kindle and
Yeah,
hard and soft cover.
it is on Amazon. And I'm super excited to read it, and then also read it where I listen to reading it. Because a lot of times when I tell people, oh, I read that book, what I really mean is I listened to that book.
I'm with you. I do
So
that myself.
yes, well, while I was doing other things. Where did this come from? I mean, not where did the 15 principles come from or anything, but what was the indicator, trigger or catalyst or whatever you want to call? Because this is a commitment, Dave. I mean, this was,
Yeah,
you're not going to do anything different with your day job. You're all in, all that stuff. But I mean, still, your spare time, right? Like your discretionary income after all your bills are paid, same kind of thing. You opted to spend doing this.
I did. The research came from my doctoral dissertation. And so
Okay.
as I did that, everyone knows the best dissertation is a finished dissertation. And I had to take the academic approach, which I didn't always enjoy. I'm a practitioner and I did my doctorate later in life and, after many years of in business. And I heard stories through my dissertation research that I thought would be what I'm calling an airplane book. So, you have a
Okay.
2-hour flight somewhere and you can knock out the book. And I wanted to share those stories. Nobody reads a dissertation. I mean, my mom and I think, are the only ones that have read that dissertation. And yet this book has the stories that I hope people can find out, a bit of a self-assessment of how am I doing in these categories? Is there another category that interests me to help me be the best part of someone's day?
What else? If you got a magic wand, right? Because as you're talking, my brain is going to like fast forward what can be done with this. What are your thoughts on what else can be done with the information of this book, or what have you done with it? Because you are a CEO of an organization of 950 people.
The thing that has been so fun for me is I've had some keynote opportunities at conferences. I've had the opportunity to go in and do a lunch and learn with someone's business or a half-day workshop for their team. And those are really rewarding for me. When you write a book, you really never know how it's going to land. And to be able to have that face-to-face interaction with people and listen to them say, here's what I saw, here's what I took out of it, and most importantly, here's what I'm doing with it. When
Yep.
I present, Michelle, the last slide I always have is, what are you going to do in the next 24 hours? Because otherwise it's entertainment and I'm not that entertaining. So let's find something that we can take that improves our lives, and I think more important, improves the lives of the people around us. So that's what I hope. The other thing we
Yeah.
talked earlier, I've been at our organization for a really long time, and a portion of all of the proceeds from the coaching and teaching and the book are going to the KSB Hospital Foundation, and I'm really excited about that.
I love that. I freaking love that. When you were talking about this and the things that you've done with it already, one of the things for me is when you have these nuggets of teaching, right? So I do leadership development. One of the things I've taken is Sean Aker. He did a TEDx talk probably, 12, 13 years ago now. 12-minute video. I pull that into leadership development stuff. So people got this snippet of stuff to watch. And let's go into breakouts. What stood out for you? What does it mean for you, right? Because mindset matters. And so when I think about this kind of a reference, I think about, and even though I haven't read it, just talking to you, is how can we take some of these nuggets that are in there and have teaching moments with people in our organizations, right?
Right.
So it's like, book club or masterminds or whatever it may be. And so that excites me too, is to take, not everyone can be in the room with Dave Schreiner, okay? But everyone can be in the room with Dave Schreiner. You know what I mean?
I do. And what I hope, Michelle, is I like to teach through stories. And maybe
Yeah.
that's the way that I learn, and that's my bias. But I like to hear, here's a story of a person that took one of these 15 concepts, and here's how they put it into practice. Because for me, that's a thing that, can I bring that back? Can I now add that to my tool set? And then I have to do it. And it's a muscle, right? And we have to flex it time after time after time. And so for me, it's that idea, I'm going to focus on this one principle for the next 4 weeks and see if I either want to keep it or discard it. And if I
Yeah.
keep it, now it's semi hardwired. And let's look at the next piece.
We call it layered learning,
Yeah, great.
that we,
I love layered
yeah,
learning.
that we just start stacking on instead of people going, I'm all in, I'm going to do these 10 things.
Yeah,
Which one are you going to start with? And I
exactly.
think it goes, you have a quote on priorities too. Because it just took my brain to priority. So your quote on that, it's one that that resonates with you.
It is. It's from Greg McKeown. And he says, if you have priorities, you don't have a priority. And I thought about your introduction, Michelle, and it's spot on. It's what's in Outlook, what's in email, how many text messages do I have? Are those the things that are most important to reach your goals, your personal, professional goals, and your organizational goals? And can we keep the main thing the main thing? It's hard to do because there's so many places that are pulling. We have to decide what's our greatest impact. I work in a job where I don't make anything. I don't have a product that I get paid to hand you. My time, what I'm compensated for. And it's my responsibility to make sure that I use that in a very intentional way.
So thank you for that. And I do appreciate the quote. It takes me to someone years ago told me, if you priority is just one, and we make it plural, right? But it is literally in that moment, what are you focusing on now? And I have to wonder, in the journey that you've had, the time at work, the things that you've done, because all the stuff that you're listing are things that I can only assume there's some level of passion around. Right? It's where, if we're going to spend our discretionary time to do these other things, they're going to be things that are going to move us forward, that we got passion around, commitment to. And I think that it's like recycling everything else. It just keeps going. But Dave, what is a time that you ran up against something that was a defining moment for you? When I think about that, to go, you know what? I'm not going to do that again. Like that, because you were very committed to how you're doing things and how you're showing up, and it's palpable and it's awesome.
Thank you for that. For me, Michelle, it revolved around my calendar and how I was managing, and our administrative assistant was managing that calendar. And I created a filter, or I learned of a filter. I probably haven't created anything in my life. I steal everything from other sources, right? I hope all of us feel that way.
It's okay that we steal and borrow things. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing for me was to look at the meetings that I was participating in. And the first filter is, do I need to be there? Do I
Mhm.
add value? Or is there someone else that adds more value that can then relay a summary to me? So one was, do I need to be at the meeting at all? The second thing was, if it's an hour meeting, can it be a 30-minute meeting, or can it be a 45-minute meeting? And the very tactical thing that I did, Michelle, that was super helpful for me, is I took 60-minute meetings and I made them 50, and I took 30-minute meetings and I made them 25. And
Mhm.
what that did for me was allow me to digest the meeting that I just finished and then think about the meeting that I have coming up. And especially in the world of Zoom and Teams and these things, what I'm doing even more so is I'll have a 9 o'clock meeting that runs until 10, and then a 10 o'clock that runs until, you go through that, as do all of
Yep.
your listeners. And before I had that ability to walk from one meeting room to the other meeting room and hopefully run into people and get stopped along the way. We get
Mhm.
less of that when we're in a virtual environment. So just that little 5 minutes and 10 minutes was a major game changer for me.
Mhm. It's interesting you say that, because I think everyone on the planet, and healthcare people, the population that were considered non-essential, that got yanked out of, brick and mortar buildings when COVID hit, is we lost the commute time too. So what you're talking about is that transition time in between whatever you're currently in to the next, readying yourself for the next thing. Whether it is, maybe there's a meeting that you got worked up, hot into the collar, someone that you're not thrilled with. How do you let that go? Reset yourself to where you're not taking that crap baggage, if you will, into the next meeting. And the same thing happens when we're commuting home, right? We leave work, we have process time as we're driving to ready ourselves for, I'm now at home. Well, when literally I'll walk out my door and I'm home, right?
Yeah.
And so that is that transition time that you're talking about. And it's powerful stuff.
It's really powerful. And as you're going through that, Michelle, I think you feel the same way about this. I think non-essential might be the most demeaning term I've heard in the history of leadership. I have a visceral reaction when I think
Yep.
about that, and I know you do too. The way that I do that, and this is a relatively new training skill that I try to put into place all the time, is I try to think about the person that I'm being in front of next. You talked about that in the moment. What do they deserve, right? And the answer is always, they deserve for me to be present and not to be hung up on what I just got done with. And
Mm-hmm.
I need to go back to what I just got done with and make sure that I close the loop and I get my head around whatever that topic was. But out of respect for the person that's in front of me, I have to be able to make that transition. And I wish I had a longer commute. I live in Dixon, Illinois. I have one stoplight between me and home. There are times when I wish I had a half-hour drive, because my
Yeah.
wife would deserve, she would get better. So, I might have to drive around the cornfield a little bit before I go home. It can be too quick.
Longer commute. There's a lot of traffic, honey,
Go a
today.
different
That's why
way.
it took me longer to get home. There was a leader that we were in the room with, and what she said was, to your point just now, when you're present, be present. And for me, the simplest words like that, the phrases, like the quote that you had, Covey's quote that we had, it's like, it's powerful, because for me, it stops me. And I'm like, that's a lot. And so when you think about that, what does it take? Because You're just saying words like when someone's in front of me, they deserve for me to be present, all that stuff. And so part of it is for people to understand what's the actual application, implementation, if you will, about what has to happen for me to accomplish that. And that's intentionality, that's practice, that's letting stuff go, that's all that stuff of building that muscle to go, I'm literally going to put this on the parking lot right now, and it's not, and I'm not bringing it with me into the next thing. And oh, by the way, what am I grateful for? What happy things? So literally I can get, cortisol out of my system. I'm not stressed anymore. I'm dopamine flooding, and I'm, all that stuff.
Right.
But those are the things.
They matter. Can I very quickly share
Yeah.
something I do in the workshops that I do?
Yes.
If you and I are partners in a workshop, so I ask us to pair up, and everybody's like, "Oh gosh, I hate it when they do this." But what this would be, if you're Michelle and I'm Dave, and Michelle has 2 minutes to describe a situation that's going on in your life right now, and my only job is for those 2 minutes, I cannot say a single word, nothing verbal. And then after that 2 minutes, then I have 2 minutes to not solve your problem, but to ask questions about your problem. And
Mm-hmm.
what I see from that, Michelle, is everything that you're describing, what it feels like to have someone intently listening and being present. And you have the facial gestures and maybe some hand movements and the body language that shows I'm locked into you and I'm listening. And that feels great. It feels wonderful. And then part of the things in my book is around, one of the premises is around the idea of asking great questions. And that is a muscle, as you described, that we have to learn how to use. And the better we get at it, that also makes that person feel better because you genuinely care about them. There's authenticity in all of that. So I love where you're going with it. And I love
Yeah.
that exercise for your
Yeah.
listeners. Take 4 minutes and give that a shot in one of your team meetings.
No, I totally agree. It's a workshop I do. It's basically leader as coach, right? And so what are those elements between being present, right? And so, and ICF has that too, active listening and powerful questioning. And it's all that stuff that you're talking about. And what I love is your view is from the leader perspective on what it looks like to apply those things, and not just have someone in the front of the room who's a talking head going, this is what you need to do. You're like, no, this is what I do. Try it.
We have a wonderful petri dish here at our
Yeah,
organization. My
I
wife
love
and
it.
kids, especially, Michelle, I can't tell you how many times we'll start a conversation and they'll stop in mid sentence and say, "You're doing again, aren't you? You're trying something."
Tell. How can you tell? I freaking love this time with you, sir. I'm like I said, you're my new buddy. So if for some reason I reach out again, please don't go, oh my God, Michelle.
It's a great day when I get a new buddy like you, Michelle. So
Oh
thank
my
you so
God, I'm
much
so
for the opportunity
excited.
to be a part of this.
Thank you. Um, what are in wrapping this, that literally I could just chat with you all day, and I'm going to be super respectful of your time and not do that. What are one or two things that you want people to walk away with, Dave, around this whole topic, or even if we haven't touched on something that you're like, God, I wish we had said XYZ?
Yeah, kindness. The one word that I always come back to, Michelle, is kindness. And the idea and the understanding that we have no idea what's going on in people's day. And if there's any opportunity that we get to connect in a more meaningful way, whatever we use to try to make that happen, with the idea of how could I be the best part of someone's day? If they were to go home that night and they're having dinner with their partner and they say, "Hey, this happened today and that was really awesome. What can we do to try to make that happen more often?" And I just ask people to think about what that looks like in our businesses and in our households and in our communities. I think it's a really important thing.
Yeah, thank you. When you're talking and saying that, and I know it's about kindness toward other people, I'm going to say this because I coach so many leaders that have the opportunity. Give yourself grace. So the grace and kindness that you're willing to extend to somebody else. I had someone say one time, because we have all this negative talk we tend to do as humans, right, and beat ourselves up. And it's like, if you wouldn't say that to a friend or someone that you loved, don't say it to yourself. So be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace as you're going through, because we're all perfectly imperfect. And as long as we're aspiring to be better than what we were yesterday or 10 minutes ago or whatever it is, celebrate that crap.
That is world-class coaching. That's wonderful advice. How can we start with that for other people if we don't have some degree of that in our own rambling mind.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be key to creating a judgment-free zone, because when people step into a judgment-free zone, they know it. They know it. So thank you. So I'm going to put the link to be able to order this book that I'm on it. I'm going to read, and then I'm also going to listen to when it comes out on Audible. I'll put a link to that. Dave, I enjoyed spending time with you. I wish you all the best of luck. And if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, do not hesitate to ask.
Michelle, thank
So
you so much. And I'll turn that back over to you as well. If there's anything that I can help you in your coaching practice, please reach out.
thank you. I appreciate it. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe. If you have a topic you want to talk about or want to come on the podcast as a guest, and you're like a leader like Dave, or not a aspiring leader like Dave, let me know. Until next time, thank you.